Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Glad that you all are here to help Hannah mark this milestone in her piano. She's finished her first book. And before we begin, let's just bow our heads for a word of prayer. Our Lord, thank you so much for music, for the blessing that it is to us. I pray that you will be with us this afternoon, and I thank you so much for all that you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we'll turn the time over to Hannah and her teacher.
Just about 10 months ago, a little less perhaps, Hannah had her first Suzuki piano lesson, and that was a very exciting day. And since then, it's been my great privilege and pleasure to watch her develop her talent for music that God has given her. Now, the Suzuki method is often called talent education because it nurtures and develops the talent that every child has in them. And it is also called the mother tongue approach. And I'm going to explain that just a little bit before Hannah plays. Just think about how babies learn to speak. They absorb everything in their environment, and then one day they start repeating what they've heard. In the Suzuki method, the most important part is for the child to listen to the music that she will be playing. And the more that she listens to the piece, the easier it is for them to learn it. A teacher can always tell when a child hasn't been listening enough. It shows up in their lesson. So for Hannah, listening to her Suzuki music has been just as important as her practice time. But the Suzuki method is more than just listening. When a baby actually says a word, everyone is so happy, and they want the baby to say the word again and again and again. Now suppose the baby learns to say, Mama. Imagine if the mother said, okay, great, you learned to say Mama. Now quit saying that and say, Dada. That baby would have a really hard time ever learning to really speak because it would learn one word, then would concentrate on the next, but never repeat the words that she's already learned. In the same way, the Suzuki student doesn't drop a piece as soon as they've learned to play all the notes. Even when the child has learned to play the notes perfectly, that's really the beginning of learning to play that piece. Now she can concentrate on making the piece beautiful with dynamics, with technique, with tone, with feeling. Now today Hannah is going to show you how she is developing these skills as she plays from memory the 21 pieces in Suzuki Book 1. But first, we're going to think a little bit about language again. Now, when a baby learns to say a word, or even before the baby learns to say the word, do we insist that that baby learn to read the word? That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? They master language long before they learn to read. And in the Suzuki method, beginner children are not asked to read the printed music for much the same reasons. Instead, after they have learned to play, they begin to learn the skill of reading music. It's a totally different skill. The reading is not the same skill as playing. We see that very plainly when it comes to language. Reading is not the same skill as speaking. It's the same with music. Hannah has started to learn the skill of reading music, and she will continue in earnest as she begins Book 2. Book 1 of the Suzuki repertoire is by far the most important book. This is because it provides solid musical foundation for the student. The student also learns the important skills of concentration, memorization, and coordination, skills that will help her in other areas of her life as well. I remember one of my boys, they were taking Suzuki as well, and he said to me, Mommy, I would be so ignorant if it weren't for Suzuki. He realized that it was teaching him more than just how to play the piano. The pieces in Book 1 are all built around folk melodies, and they provide an excellent foundation for the major piano pieces that the student begins to play in Book 2. Hannah, this is an important milestone for you, as your daddy already said. And we're all here to show our support of you and our encouragement and our happiness that you have reached this milestone. So our goal for you is that as you develop your musical talent, you will use it to be a blessing to others. So Hannah, go ahead and come on up to the piano. Today, as Hannah plays each of these short pieces, you may want to clap to show your appreciation for what she's done, but we ask that you hold the applause until the last piece. Book 1 begins with what we call the Twinkle Variations. They are 4 variations, all built on the melody of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. These pieces may sound easy, or maybe they won't. I remember the first time I heard them, I didn't think they sounded that easy. But in reality, they are the most technically difficult of all the pieces in Book 1. In these simple pieces are found all the basic techniques for piano playing. Because of this, it can take a number of months for the student to master these variations. While Hannah was working on her twinkles, is what we call them, she also learned a number of pentatonic pieces played entirely on the black keys. She will begin her recital today with one of these entitled Cuckoo. Hannah learned to play each of the 4 twinkle variations with both her right and her left hands. However, she was asked not to play them together, hands together. This is so she could concentrate on the various techniques that are built into each piece. As Hannah plays the different variations, you will maybe wonder why she's not playing with both hands, but this is why. And although she has also improvised a number of harmonies for each one of the variations, today she's going to play the first 3 just simply with one hand, just the way she does in her practice sessions. Twinkle Variation A teaches the student to play a crisp finger staccato. That's moving the finger like this. This is not a natural skill. This is something she had to learn. She also had to learn to play on the ends of her fingers and to keep her hand in a neutral position. As Hannah plays this variation with her right hand, you will notice other things that show her finely developing technique, including a carefully articulated rhythm, which Hannah often called lolly, lolly, pop, pop. Right hand twinkle variation A. In Twinkle Variation B, Hannah learned to drop onto the keys in a smooth, relaxed motion and to use a beautiful wrist roll after each sustained note. She will play this piece with her right hand as well. Twinkle Variation B. As Hannah learned Twinkle Variation C, she further developed her finger staccato, but this time with a faster, softer rhythm. This is a challenge for the piano student who naturally wants to play louder as she speeds up the rhythm. This time, Hannah will play with her left hand Twinkle Variation C. Twinkle Variation D is actually a legato study, teaching the student to play smoothly from one note to the next with a clear, beautiful tone. They also learn to play smooth, repeated notes, which are quite difficult. Hannah will play Twinkle Variation D with a left-hand accompaniment that she improvised on her own. Play both hands. Typically, about 1/3 to 1/2 of the time spent in learning Book 1 focuses on the 4 Twinkle Variations. After Hannah had mastered these 4 pieces, she fairly flew through the remaining pieces. When Mozart was asked which was the most beautiful music, he answered, "No music." He meant that rests were needed to make the music beautiful. Honeybee is the first piece in the Suzuki repertoire that has rests. It is also the first piece to be played hands together. Even though the notes in both hands are the same, it can be a challenge to play hands together, as different fingers in each hand must be used at the same time. In other words, in Honeybee, the first note is played with finger 5 of the right hand, but finger 1 of the left hand. Honeybee. In the Cuckoo, Hannah learned the basics of left-hand triplet accompaniment often found in classical music. This is also the first piece in which she learned to play hands together with different notes in each hand. In addition, she learned to hold a note with one hand while the other hand continued to play. Cuckoo is an exciting piece because it not only sounds beautiful, it sounds like real music. Lightly Row is the first piece in the repertoire to use Alberti bass, an accompaniment style often used in classical music. This is a more complicated pattern than simple triplet accompaniment and can be quite a difficult coordination challenge. But it provides a foundation for many future pieces in the Suzuki repertoire and in the whole classical style. As Hannah plays Lightly Row, listen for the left-hand Alberti bass sequence, which is bottom note, top note, middle note, top note. Lightly Row. French children's song gave Hannah practice in legato repeated notes and a constantly changing Alberti bass pattern in the left hand. It is a challenging piece to memorize. French children's song. London Bridge was Hannah's first experience with a tricky fingering change. It also added a dotted rhythm, an eighth note played between beats. London Bridge. Mary Had a Little Lamb was Hannah's first piece with blocked chords. It takes considerable coordination and concentration to play all notes of the chord exactly together without drowning out the melody. Hannah also learned to play the right hand smoothly while raising the left hand to change chords. Another coordination challenge. In these first pieces, Hannah used two basic chords, the tonic, or one chord, and the dominant, or five chord. In Go Tell Aunt Rhody, she added the subdominant, or four chord. This was exciting for Hannah. In fact, after I showed her this new chord, she was able to figure out the entire left hand for this piece. Go Tell Aunt Rhody. Au Clair de la Lune presents a new kind of challenge. In 3 of the 4 phrases, the right hand is identical, but each time the left hand is different. Because of this, Hannah must concentrate on the left hand, but she must try to keep it soft enough so that you can hear the right hand. This is excellent practice for the sonatas she will be playing in years to come. Clair de Lune. Long, Long Ago reviews techniques that she's already learned while demanding a new level of performance. Listen for Alberti bass, for musical rests and changing left-hand patterns. This piece also includes a jump of nearly an octave in the right hand. Long, Long Ago. Little Playmates is the first piece with a melody in the left hand. In this piece, the melody actually changes back and forth between the hands. Thus, Hannah must concentrate first on emphasizing one hand and then the other. She must also try to keep the blocked chords as even as possible. Little playmates. Shanta Rab, Hannah's first piece in a minor key, introduces broken octaves in the left hand. This technique will be used, again, in more advanced music. As Hannah plays the middle section of this piece, listen for the full octave jumps in the left hand. Shanta Rab. In Allegretto 1, Hannah again used the triplet rhythm. She also learned a new chord, the dominant seventh or 5/7 chord. This piece emphasizes a variety of dynamic changes. Notice the loud and soft sections as Hannah plays Allegretto 1. More than anything else, Goodbye to Winter teaches concentration. As the piece ends, the same notes are played several times, with the last note held for a total of 6 counts. Listen for the diminuendo and rallentando at the end. In other words, getting softer and slowing down. Goodbye to Winter. Allegretto 2 is a lively piece that requires a good deal of finger strength and coordination between the hands. Listen for the ever louder repeated notes at the top of each phrase and the strong accents that are sprinkled here and there throughout the piece. Allegretto 2. Christmas Day Secrets is the first piece that gave Hannah a real taste of the classical music she will soon be playing. Its delicate sounds require beautiful phrasing, short, airy staccatos, tiny eighth notes, and eighth rests. The piece also includes complex fingering challenges in both hands and a number of musical turns, a technique that makes a piece sparkle. Allegro is the first piece played in the key of G and requires a high degree of coordination. Much of the song must be played with crisp right-hand staccatos, but the middle section requires a smooth, sweet sound known as dolce. In this piece, Hannah also learned the meaning of fermata, or hold, and a tempo, return to the original rhythm. Allegro. The final piece in the book, Hannah was introduced to the key of D minor. This piece contains many of the techniques she will use in later playing sonatinas and sonatas, including independent phrasing in each hand, changing the top note of a chord while holding the bottom note. Musette is a perfect introduction to the songs Hannah will soon be playing in Book 2. That concludes Hannah's Book 1 recital. It represents a lot of patient and careful practice. Let's give her a well-deserved hand. Hannah's home teacher, her mother, also deserves a big hand. She's practiced with Hannah almost every day, and her enthusiasm, her dedication, her love, and her home instruction have been an indispensable part of what Hannah has learned in her musical training. And now, Hannah, I just have something for you to remind you of this day. It actually plays.